Happy New Year! We made it! Hello, everybody. Good morning, afternoon, evening. I'm Maddy Montaquila. That's my name now. I'm here with the lovely Dave and our special guest, James Clancey, who I told the wrong time for this, and he still managed to get up and get here in time because he's the best. We also managed to start stand-up without accidentally putting our faces on the screen too early. So 2022 is off to a great start. We have a very exciting stand-up today. Some preview 11 stuff Dave will share with us because that shipped. That's cool. Clancy's going to show us the latest and greatest with Comet, which if you haven't heard of, is his kind of like, I would say a side project, but it's kind of like your project. And it's an MVU style thing with dotnet. It's cross-platform. It's cool. That's all about all the description I can give of it, but I'll make sure Clancey, we brought him along and we answer all your questions as we go later. But if this is your first time joining us, we're going to do the usual today. No funny business. We'll do some blogs. We'll do some PRs from Dave, and then Clancey will kind of spend the last half of this showing off Comet stuff. There will be funny business. I don't know why I said no funny business.
I know. I'm like, that sounds like a challenge.
It does sound like a challenge. And I'm laughing because like the first thing I wanted to show was this.
Maui Preview 11 was supposed to be here.
So I didn't share my audio, so you didn't hear the doubled of Dave talking and Clancy talking, but it's Gerald asking where the heck .NET Maui Preview 11 is, because you might have noticed it shipped like silently right before the holiday season, but Visual Studio didn't ship yet, so there was no easy way for you to install it, so we just didn't publish a blog. Everyone was like, you know what? It's the holidays. We're going to take a little breather here, make sure it's a good experience for everybody. The bits are live, but now that Visual Studio is out yesterday, Dave posted a wonderful blog about it. Yesterday. I'm like, what day is it? And now it's announced. It's there. So there, Gerald, we found it for you. There's .NET Maui. Preview 11's great.
It's got some cool stuff in it, for sure. I mean, the Fluent design is a work in progress. We're basically updating all the skins. I like to call them skins because that's what I used to use back when I was doing Adobe stuff. So it's in my vocabulary. But yeah, so just a few of them are implemented. There's quite a few more controls to go once Matthew's back from his vacation. He'll start working on that again, I would assume. And then the multi-window stuff is obviously very exciting. This is something that, certainly accentuates the fact that we're not just a mobile platform, or no mobile framework. This is desktop as well. And so more of these desktop specific things will start to appear. Multi-window is one of them. You can use it today on Mac Catalyst. And if you can find your way to the experimental package of WinApp SDK, it may be there for you. I know that we've been testing it with internal packages that weren't publicly available yet, but that's on the way. So the Windows developers, be patient with us, and it'll be there soon. But you can use it in Catalyst today. It's very cool. More desktop stuff will be coming in the future. We're looking at, mouse hovers and things like that are very cursor focused. Yeah.
Lots of cool stuff. Lots of goodies in the blog.
And new documentation. Definitely we should highlight that because over the break, I think it was around the 24th, right before Christmas.
Yeah.
Dave Britch published a whole set of docs. I think there were about 12 new docs that were added. Wow. And he is committed. He's committed, and I'm committing him publicly on a live stream that he will, we're looking to publish new batches of docs every week. Wow. So porting those docs from Xamarin Forms, Android and iOS as they apply, and bringing them into the Maui docs so that they're easier to find. Not everybody makes the connection that Maui has its roots in the Xamarin SDK space, and that those docs still, for the most part, apply. So having them in Maui will be very helpful. So we've heard the feedback for sure. Hey, where are the docs? There are no docs. I can't find the docs. And so I'm excited that we're able to start publishing those now.
Yeah, that's great. Wow. It sounds like he had a productive break. Sounds like you had a productive break watching TV.
He was on
Clancey wrote a lot
vacation
of
like
code.
early December, I think, and then we all went on vacation at the end of December. So he showed
I
us.
played about 40 hours of Minecraft. The new update is awesome, but I did not do anything productive otherwise. So that's where we're at. Dave writes docs. I play Minecraft. We're doing great. But when you said skins, like the Fluent Control skins, I was thinking about my new Minecraft skin, which is a Sonic t-shirt, which is very exciting. So whatever, no big deal. Anyways, I just put the links in the chat. They're also in the show notes on YouTube and on Twitch. They'll be in the chat and they'll be in all the uploads after. But it's just the same schema as usual. urls.com/maui-standup-jan 2022. And it's got all the things that we are going to look at today. The first community blog I wanted to show was Leah Marie. Zammy, Ask Zammy, took this nice graphic, made a graphic of all of our previews and everything we shipped in them. So I'm really hoping she updates this for preview 11 because it's great. And I was very excited by this. Look at this. Remember on preview 1 last February, we had our first sample project and partial control implementations. That's where we were a year ago. So we've come a long way, I would say. Yeah. Pretty good. Not bad. And then also she links to one of my favorite pages we have, which is the status wiki. 158 revisions. It's like you guys are like building a product or something. Oh, I didn't mean to click on it. Oh no. But this literally shows us what's pending, what's underway, what's done for each platform. So you can scroll through and be like, why is my carousel view like swipe being weird? Oh, because it's still in progress. Oh, great. Why is collection view only working on iOS? Well, that's the only place we've built it, implemented it for Maui so far. So this is a really good place to follow all those things if you have questions.
And those, sand timers, what do we call hourglass? Those generally mean that there's probably a PR with that work already made and it's just in review. If you want to, you can go check out the PR and you can download a NuGet package off of those PRs and explore that yourself if you're super eager.
Yeah. You just click on, usually this is where
it's a draft.
That's a draft. That's why I know what I'm doing. Is this a draft? No. There should be a little check this thing. You can click. And it shows you all the builds.
I mean, something failed.
Yeah.
In the CI. There's a lot of CI steps. So
yeah. So, but then there will be packages and stuff that show up in these checks. So that's a good way to grab those things if you want them. Cool. Okay. Mike Parker, one of our team members on the customer advisory team, who we might have as a guest next month. He's awesome. He basically spent a bunch of time figuring out how to use the Onyx runtime with Xamarin Forms for machine learning, and then wrote this amazing blog about it. I know very little about machine learning. So when he was like, do you want to review my blog post? I read it and I was like, yeah, it makes sense. But it's really interesting. And if you're a machine learning fan or you want to learn some more about how you can do that in Xamarin Forms, this is a really good, very approachable blog to read. So this is also, it categorizes golden retriever as a type of dog. So I think that's just the best sample that could possibly exist. Yeah. So check that out and hopefully we'll see him next month. He's on vacation right now. So good. This one, Xamarin Forms and Draggable View, the New Year Tale. And this is by Bodon. Sorry. This guy. You're great.
Mr. Magic Gradients.
Yes. Correct. Also, Mr. Lord of the Rings references in his blogs. So I was very excited by that. I watched all 3 Lord of the Rings Director's Extended Edition over break as well. A very productive week I had. That's like 12 hours of film. But it was really enjoyable. There's some good scenes in Return of the King that they cut. So anyways, this one was, I just really said that so loud it echoed. Sorry. This is using a custom control to drag and drop around inside bounds, this limit area. So you can make it a nice reusable, draggable thing. The 2 towers, Android and iOS. See, this is so good. I laughed when I was reading this. It's good. If a blog makes me chuckle, I'll take it. But yeah, it's a good old custom control blog. I always love seeing these. And I just laughed. I'm sorry. And then yeah, some more code. So check this one out. I know dragging to me has always just been like, if I can't do it with the gesture recognizer, I just don't even touch it because it seems like a lot of work. So this was actually pretty approachable, and I might go and try and implement this at some point, mostly so I can laugh at the Lord of the Rings references again. Andreas had this nice short little blog on converting your templates and just like your project file from Xamarin Forms to .NET 6. And so we're doing this work for you in the .NET Upgrade Assistant tool that we're currently working on. It's like maybe 40 or 50% of the way there, but still got some stuff to do. But this is just like literally the Android CS proj file. This is why I wanted to show this blog. It's so simple. Literally took his template from 120 lines of CS proj to 11. 11. And that is how you make this run .NET 6, which is pretty cool. So Maui is going to have this by default. The Upgrade Assistant is going to take your Xamarin Forms apps and move them to Maui and do this for you. And it's going to be beautiful. Yeah. But this is just a Xamarin app, which is cool. We're not really doing anything for Xamarin support on .NET 6, but it's not impossible. We just don't really recommend it because it's not really supported. But if you want to, Andreas did it. Worked for him, it seems. He does have a good comment here that is doesn't seem like all the bits are in place yet, which I feel like I could tattoo across my forehead as a response to every question we've had about Maui right now. Yeah, they're not all in place yet, but we're getting there. We're getting there. Almost there. You saw the roadmaps. We've made some progress. Okay, Michael Ridland is coming up with this new blog series called .NET Maui Source of Truth, in which he goes through the source code of Maui to explore certain elements. And this one is iWindow. So he goes into what they did with Xamarin Forms. We did with Xamarin Forms. And then how windows are handled in Maui. And I actually don't know. He published this like a week ago. No, sorry. January 5th is not a week ago. It's January 6th, yesterday. So I imagine, Michael, that you took a look at the multi-window stuff in this blog. But if you didn't, we can... Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
there it is. Multiple windows. Very exciting. But that wasn't in his summary. Anyways, the other thing I found is that Michael links to his company's website here, and it has the coolest header of all time. Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. So totally unrelated to this anything. But if Michael, if you could tell me how on earth you built this thing, I would really like to know. It's really cool. Final blog. Set up .NET Maui project on Mac OS. I feel like I show one of these every month, and they're all pretty similar, but just a little updated, which is good. We are working on VS Mac support. They will exist at some point. I have said this before, so sorry if you are hearing this as a repeat, but VS Mac got rebuilt from the ground up, the UI. It's running on .NET 6 now, or it's about to run on .NET 6. So the Maui stuff we're just kind of building once VS Mac, the base, is ready to roll. It will exist. We're not never doing VS Mac support, but if you are a Mac person and you really want to start using it, and you have the latest VS and Xcodes, you can just, this person uses Maui check, but you could also just .NET workload install now. That works well too. But Maui check will work if you wanted to. And then you can do all from the command line because it's just .NET 6, .NET new Maui, and then .NET build. And for your framework here is .NET 6 Mac Catalyst. So yeah, very easy peasy. And those are all the blogs I wanted to show this month. So we're going to turn it over to, how do I take my screen out? I remember how to use StreamYard. To Dave. Bam.
So on that note about the Mac OS install, I did a little blog over the break as well about that. And then I also turned it into a page on our wiki. So it's down here, Windows install, Mac OS install. Similar steps, slightly different. There's no Maui check in here. There's a few other .NET commands. And then it also takes you through building that first app and then how you can get your iOS UDID. So Andres, if you have additional information from your blog that you think would be useful to add here, let me know. We'll take I don't know if you can, I don't think you can PR to wikis, can you? Just message me. We'll figure it out. But I'm glad to see that more and more people are kind of publishing how they're getting Mac up and going. And once we get a Visual Studio, that won't even be needed. So I've got quite a few PRs and different community-related work happening here, and I'm trying not to sneeze. I can do it. I can do it. So I'll go pretty rapid fire so that Mr. Clancey can be ready. I keep watching his little icon to see if he's like battling build errors or anything. So I wanted to call attention to, we have a Xamarin Forms release that went out in December. So this is the 10th. I think we publicized it around the 14th. So a handful of more improvements, bug fixes in here, and even some quite a few community contributions. So thank you for your contributions to making Xamarin Forms continually better. And that is the 8th service release that has gone out. Gerald and Javier and others on the team are doing a great job keeping those going. And if you haven't seen this, you can go back to the latest Xamarin blog that I did and see links to all the different support policy website official things. Xamarin is supported for 2 years after the current release. And so you're going to have some time to make this transition to Maui. However, but you need to plan accordingly. So if you're looking for that information, your boss keeps asking you what's going on with Xamarin, go check out the blog. It's got a bunch of information for you in there. All right. So there is a lot of activity happening over in the Maui Community Toolkit. So this is the new version of the Xamarin Community Toolkit. It is not the Compat version of the Maui Community Toolkit. It is Maui. So it's pure Maui code. And I thought this was interesting. I had to actually kind of step back and read this for a minute to figure out what Brandon was up to. So you know how you have those animation helpers, fade to, move to, all that sort of thing, translate to, those helper extension methods off of your view. Well, you can do the same thing now with text. So anything that implements the iText interface, iText style interface, you can now do a text color too, and it will animate your color transition. That's pretty nice. So some cool helpers there. Brandon loves the C# syntax and doesn't use much XAML, so makes sense. So check that out. Hasn't been merged yet. It's an open PR, but I imagine Brandon will get that merged pretty quickly. Let's see, what else do we have here? So some bug fixes and some community contributions. I wanted to give some props to folks. So this is Dmitro Bondarenko. That's a cool name. From the Ukraine. And he's fixing some pop-up issues related to multiple pop-ups, things like that. So if you want to check that out, more awesome improvement. And this is in the Xamarin Community Toolkit. And it's been merged. And I actually just pinged Gerald earlier today and said, hey, do you have plans for when the next Community Toolkit is going to be released? He says we can do one anytime. So I think we'll see a new Community Toolkit NuGet published very soon. Let's see here. And then Andre continues to contribute to his beloved touch effect. So if you're looking for things like long press command, it's in the Community Toolkit. And it's a very simple effect that you can compose onto really any view in your app and add not just long press, but there's several others as well. And I believe that there's even some effects associated to it. You can get a ripple going and stuff like that. So that's merged. And then we do have the Maui Compat build, which has been updated for preview 11. So Vladislav took care of that 10 days ago. He's a frequent contributor and helps maintain the Community Toolkit. And so it's nice to see that, if you have a dependency on the Xamarin Community Toolkit and you're looking to bring that to Maui, the Maui Compat will be very helpful for you to make that transition. If you're not able to use everything that's in the Maui toolkit itself. So Compat gives you everything that's in the Xamarin Community Toolkit. Cool. So that's actually a duplicate. let's see here. So I mentioned the releases. So there was a release that went out at the end of November. We didn't publish anything in December, but like I said, there's a bunch of things that have been merged, and it seems like we'll get a new NuGet very soon. So I wanted to spend a little time exploring what's happening out there in the world. What are the community libraries that are being published? And I found this one, compiledbindings.maui. So this brings Xbind to Maui. And as we'll see here in just a second, it's more than just Maui. And there are 0 downloads. So go download this and check this out. This is something that we talked about doing a ways back and didn't really get around to it. But this is now available to you. So if you go check out the GitHub for it, you can see not only examples and where it is supported, but he even goes so far as to do some performance testing and share the results down here. If I scroll far enough. It's way down here. Here we go. So performance. So he shows the performance of this with Xamarin Forms, not compiled bindings using the data type that we have, and then using these compiled bindings using the Xbind syntax. And you can go check it out. There are MP4s you can compare, and then also has it running in a WPF app using Xamarin Forms. So check that out. I mean, this seems like he's gone through a lot of effort and work to make this happen. And I know that those of you who come from WPF and places where Xbind existed, this could be very useful for you. So I thought that was worth sharing. And then I saw this as a NuGet as well. Excuse me for clicking around. So Bill has put together a reorderable collection view, and he shares it as a NuGet. And I was looking at this and I was like, oh, that's great. Man, this looks really, really familiar. And then I realized he actually has already opened up a PR on the Maui repo to add this. So thank you very much. And I hope that we can see this added at some point. I believe it still needs to go through review. I don't know if there's been much conversation here, but this would be a great one if this is interesting for you to come pull the NuGet off of the PR and let us know your feedback. Is this working for you? Is it working on the platforms that you're using? But I love how it just reorders. That always feels like magic, even though I used platforms that did that 15 years ago. Still feels like magic when it just does that animation for you. So that's cool. Check that out. I mentioned the macOS install docs that I added. This was a fun one because I was working on a little little project myself with Comet, which I'll link to in just a second. And I noticed that the humanizer had a bunch of different language number to words converters, but it didn't have Korean. And so I was like, well, maybe I could figure this out. And so I tweeted about it. And not too long after I tweeted it, Kango said, okay, well, here's the PR for it. He works at Samsung. He works on the Tizen team. And just like that, within hours, he had submitted the PR. And Claire jumped right on it and got it merged for me. So if you don't use Humanizer, very useful library, not just for number to word conversions. It does a whole bunch of stuff. But thank you, Rookie Java, for your contribution to my side project. So what I built, and this is going to segue into James talking about Comet, is I built this word clock. So I've been learning Korean. That's been my hobby. Maddie, you asked me what I did over break. So I read some books.
Way cooler than what you said to me.
I know. Whatever. So I've been learning it for a year now, and I still probably couldn't hold a conversation. But I thought, you know what? This will help me learn the number systems. There's actually 2 number systems in Korean. And I thought this would be very helpful. So I had seen this somewhere. Somebody had built one using Arduino. And I was like, well, I could, I write code. I can make this happen. So I have 2 examples in here. I have one using the Maui markup extensions, which is straight Maui app with the C# markup. And then I have this version, which is Comet. And this, thankfully, James did work when he came back from his trip. And he started replying and answering my questions and solving my problems and adding code. So now I've actually got a nice working app. I was going to share my Mac to show it off, but my screen share can't find a license server. And that's not something I'm going to go figure out today. But anyway.
Or you can just join double in the StreamYard. That's what I'm doing.
Join double in the StreamYard? Yeah, I suppose I could do that. So definitely plenty of things to be improved in here. Those are all helper methods. But here is and this is using the old grid syntax. Sorry, James, I haven't pushed my changes yet. But there is a new, actually, this is using partially new. I've got the V grid with the 6 cells there. But I think I need to do some additional work on this. Anyway, I love this. I find it to be extremely productive. It's all C#, so I can use the hot reload that goes along with, and I hardly ever have to recompile this thing. And I get great feedback from the Reloadify extension library, dotnet tool, I guess is what it is specifically. So with that, and it's all built on Maui, I think is kind of one of the main things that we want to talk about is how we split Maui and separated the MVVM Xamarin Forms-ness of it, which is actually mostly called controls in the Maui repo, and then the platform implementation pieces so that we had a foundation of native platform stuff to build other things on and experiment with. And Comet is one of those experiments. So I'm going to stop talking now. You can stop sharing my screen and let's go over to James. James, what is Comet?
So what is Comet? Comet is an MVU framework. So it's all
MVU.
Yes, model view update. Thanks for asking. It's kind of a new UI paradigm that's been getting traction. It's very similar to what you see in like Swift UI or Dart, or Flutter and Dart type thing. But the idea is you write your code and you kind of ditch. It's a simplification is the biggest way to think about it. Is like you get to ditch some glue layers and ditch some layers and just put everything that matters all in one place. I actually do have the Comet repo up and things. And it all kind of started because like all these new frameworks came out and they were so cool, and C# didn't have anything really nice. And I didn't like that. And we were told, like, we're in this meeting and we're told, no, it's not possible to build anything like this yet. I'm like, no, we totally can. And so like a couple days later, I had a prototype saying, look, we need to do this. And so it's kind of exciting. And it's really done a lot to help. Oh, yeah. So I can zoom my code in more. People asking, actually. It's still too small. Yes. Wow, that's way bigger than I normally put it. But this code's actually not that exciting to look at anyway. So, but yeah, the idea is like, I wanted to write less code. I am a lazy person as far as things go a lot. I hate doing things just because that's how you do them. And you go through the motions because it's what you always do. And I'm like, if I'm constantly doing something over and over again, I want to simplify it. And I write apps a lot, and I hate writing boilerplate code. I hate doing the whole pomp and circumstance just because that's what you do. And so that's kind of was the idea behind Comet, is to just simplify things as much as possible. And I did have that VS Code window up, and I didn't really work on Comet much during my break. My wife actually just wanted me to build a couple apps for her. And so of course I'm going to build them in Comet. And that's kind of where I spent my time was working on things for her, which in turn means I end up fixing Comet because Comet's going to have issues. But this is just a really simple app that I built for her. It's a way for her. She runs a store, and it's a way for them to. It's really ugly because I'm not a good graphic designer, but it's functional. But it ties into like in barcode scanning, so they can scan barcodes, and it lets them reprice things and upload photos. So it's really, really simple. And this app just has a main page with the uploader and then an items list. And since I'm doing hot reload and doing things on device a lot, I wanted a way to like see why it failed. So I added my console output. This is like my little console outputter. But let's just go through a couple different parts in this, because there's a few things in here that are going to look foreign to people, especially if you're coming from the MVVM world. So the big thing with Comet is everything is a view. We don't really have this page versus view. Yes, you'll see us name things pages, but that's just purely out of habit. Any view, a view is just a construct. This is something that's going to go on screen. And when you do that, you can say, okay, this view, it's going to have a body. And you will always do this body. I actually forgot to add a body, and I started setting things in the constructor. And I'm like, why is this thing not working? You can do things in the constructor. You just have to set the body. So public main page, you can just say body equals. That's how you do it in the constructor, but the body is very, very important. And wow, the GitHub code pilot stuff has really started to learn Comet. When I first started doing it, it was really, really bad. But since I've been writing in it, it uses your own code to get better, and it gets a lot better. It's gotten a lot better over time. So yeah, you can just set it up there. But the idea is you have this body, and the body is the view that's actually going to be displayed. And so the view is just kind of like its container, but like I said, everything's a view. Think about that in Comet. Everything's a view. So we create a new tab view, and inside the tab view, you just say, hey, look, I've got this uploader view. I'm going to throw this items view in here, and I'm going to throw a log view in here. And that builds this little simple app we see here. I didn't add an icon or text to the list view. So the list view has nothing in there, but things just load. All right, so I'm going to jump into this. The main page is a little bit complicated because there's a lot going on here. Lets you add photos, and no point in jumping through all that. So it's a little bit too much. I did tweet basically the contents of that view. But with Comet, I wanted to do things to make it really, really simple. And one of the things that Dave was actually asking me about over break was like, well, how do you like hide things? I'm like, well, you just don't add it to the view. So this list view by default, actually, when it first loads, you'll notice on view appearing, it makes an API call and fills this data out. Well, it starts out as a black screen that's really ugly, but it's really simple for me to just say items.value. This is a state. It is just a little helper class that says, hey, I'm going to be using something that's going to change. And when it changes, reload the UI based on the parts that change or that need to change based on this. So I can say items.count equals 0, new activity, or what's activity indicator, is it? Yes, activity indicator, else show our list view. Now, if I hit save, hot reload was working. Oh, no, it looks like the app is, I don't know why it's pinwheel. Okay, I crashed my app somewhere along the way. But the idea in here is just to say, hey, if it's add the activity indicator, else just show me this list. And so the idea is to get a lot of things out of the way. So I don't need to build a view model that then will have a binding property on it that's going to go check that count and then turn that into a true false statement. So that way I can then bind it in XAML somewhere else. The idea is to just get everything out of the way. Yeah, my save function's not even working in VS Code right now.
It's just, it
I don't
feels
know
the
why
pressure.
Yeah, like file save and it's still showing me it's unsaved. So I think it's VS Code that's freaking out right now.
Do you want me to unshare your screen? Do you want to give it a restart?
No, it's all right. I'm just going to restart the VS Code window, and we'll just go into the Comet repo while that's going on. Also, I'm not paying much attention to chat, so it's on a different screen. So if any of you guys are, and there's questions that should be bubbled up.
Yeah, there's a question from Jose about what's the difference between MVU and MVU-X? I
have no idea what MVU-X is.
Yeah,
I think
Jose,
the MVU-X has an X on the end. So I don't know if you want to. I have not familiar with it. So, but a couple things I wanted to show with going into this is, like I said, the whole idea has always been to simplify things. And I had to do some barcode scanning, and I wanted to actually display a barcode as well. And so I wanted to bring in ZXing. And John Dick has his awesome Big Island barcode scanner. And so I actually separated it out so it follows the Maui paradigm with the new things. And there's a pull request out for this. So there's now the Maui project, which has all the actual code in it, and including the interfaces. So these are the interfaces just like we do inside of Maui. Now for controls, he went through and he built, we have the different views to display the barcode, to display the camera reader, and things like that. If we look at the Comet version, oops, double clicked. Comet is actually really small. This is the entirety of the Comet code. 3 lines of code. This is to add Comet support to a Maui library. We have a Comet generator. And so if you just say, hey, I want a Comet generate, and I pass in the interface that I want, it will now generate a view with that interface. The second set of parameters through this call thing is the key properties. Yeah, Jeremy, that's really it. Comet is, everything about Comet is about simplification. And so if we actually go look at the source code, I used to have source code for button. Let's actually go look at it. We can look at an old branch. But the Comet, actually I have a couple of controls we can look in here. Most of Comet is actually switching to be source generated stuff. I don't generate the text anymore. I don't generate the buttons. All of this just comes out by saying, hey, here's the interface. And it spits everything out. Yeah, Jose, I didn't see that presentation, so I'm unsure on that. So yes, Comet Generate is a source generator, and the code is also right here for us. So you can go through and actually look at how it does things and how it works. I'm using the mustache templates to generate it because I found that to be a lot simpler for generating code, because yes, code generators are great and they're great for finding the data, but for actually writing the code, they're horrible. So the mustache templates, really, really nice. Really nice. So that's how I did all of it, was with mustache templates. But let's look at like a control. Actually, we can look at one of the brand new controls that just got added, this H grid and view grid. Again, this goes back to this oversimplification that I'm really going for. And it might be overly simplified to some people in places because I delete everything that doesn't matter. If you look at what goes into a button, and we can actually look at the source generator for that as well. A V grid gives you a couple different things. Number one is that's required is how many columns do we have? Or you can pass in the column array like you're used to saying, hey, this is star, this one's 40, this one's star, this one's 150. And you can pass that in to have those variable. But if you don't, it's just going to auto set these things up. And they're just going to be a grid in the order. And Comet has no properties. Like the views really don't have very many public properties. If so, it's going to be read only. The only things that are here are things that I use for my layout, for actually doing the layout of the grid. But inside the constructor, you should have 1 or 2. This is extreme because there's 4, but most views in Comet will have 1 property going into it. A label, which we call text in Comet, is new text, and it lets you pass in that text value. That's it. That's the only thing that goes into a Comet view. And so inside the source generator, you specify which views are going into that. So in here, I'd say for a text button, it gets text, and then it gets the clicked callback. So you get the action. And now a button is going to have text and a callback. And that's it. You don't have to really set anything else into that. And you will notice some of the samples we've shown does have color and does have things like that. All of those are done via extension methods and are done via styles. And so you can go through and you can build up more complicated things and make things do anything you do everywhere else, but you really only worry about those 1 or 2 properties, which really takes care of a lot of the overhead of like, what's on a button? Oh, it takes text. It has a click callback. And then there's the image button, which I haven't built yet. I haven't commented out. Because I have to do I want to do a couple things to make it nicer rather than making you just pass in the image source. Image sources are kind of ugly. I want you to pass in an image because, yeah, it's just cleaner. Yeah. So let me see if VS Code, let's try rerunning that again. While this is opening, any questions?
So I wanted to ask a bit more about how state works. So you haven't talked about the state objects yet or anything like that, right? Like, I mean, the whole MVU cycle. Like, I think it's useful to talk about that.
Great question. So let's look at this sample that we were running here. I'm just going to tell it to run while I'm talking. So state is if you're coming from the MVVM world, you're used to having binding properties and bindable objects, and everything sends off an iNotify property change notification, and then you subscribe to it by reflection-based stuff or magic strings. Comet does its best to eliminate as much as that as possible. And if one things that we're showing here at this state it just says, hey, I am going to automatically make something magically bindable. And when I say something's magically bindable, there is a helper class called binding object. You do not need to use that to do MVU or Comet at all. It's just something that's there to make your life easier. And I do have a source generator for this. I just wrote this code out. I don't know why I didn't use the source generator, but you can use the source generator and it'll automatically do all this stuff for you. And what it does is there's a new interface in Comet called iNotifyPropertyRead. So if you think about iNotifyPropertyChange, that's whenever a property value changes, you fire that action. iNotifyPropertyRead fires whenever a get is called. Do I need to make this bigger again? Okay. It's huge on my screen, but I'm working on like a 32-inch screen, so it looks giant to me. What's the hotkey for that? I thought it was like Command plus. Oh, there it goes. All right, is that bigger? Looking good? Let me minimize some stuff so we have more code on screen. And if we look at, so the idea is you have this iNotifyProperty get, basically, is what it does. And so you don't have to use that, but it allows MVU to do things that are a lot nicer. Now, I kind of mentioned that everything needs a body, and I didn't explain why everything needs a body. And talking about state will help with that. So this body is whenever something changes or if something's crazy, I can always call this body. It's a function, which means I can recreate this body. I have a virtual DOM that I can then diff the new body against the old body, see what changed. And it's a really, really fast, efficient change. I don't actually check properties because I don't care. All I'm checking about are the types and do the orders matter. And so like type, order, content, like what its children are, things like that. And it's a really, really fast diff and it's very efficient. So it does that diff and says, oh, this changed. Okay, button, everything's the same. I'm just going to rebind everything as far as the Maui side goes. And so then it'll re-show everything back on screen. So it just like refreshes the UI. Now, things like this, and actually the Ride the Comet sample is actually really good at showing this off. If you do a .NET new Comet sample, you will get this view. It's called Ride the Comet. It's one that, David wrote forever ago. I think he wrote it during our hackathon 1 year.
Back when we were able to get together in person.
Yeah. So it has a body, right? And it has a view, or it has a state. Now notice this is different. It's not using that state class. It's saying, hey, I have a class that's Comet, and it's going to take care of all that iNotifyProperty stuff for me. I'm just going to say it's a state. So now Comet knows to pay attention to that view and listen to what's going on in there. Right? Does that make sense? So now Comet, the framework, is going to pay attention to this Comet. Really confusing when talking about it that way. But now the text it's a func t that returns a string. And it's saying, hey, it's using the property comet.rides and comet.cometTrain. And if we look at this, we have these properties on here, rides and comet trains. So now it knows if if the comet.rides changes or comet.ride or comet train changes, reevaluate just the string that is used to display that text. And so it doesn't have to do a full diff. It's not going to go through and rediff everything. There's no need to. It's just going to reevaluate that one function. And so that's why we have that iNotifyProperty change and that whole state, or iNotifyPropertyRead, and that state is just for simplification to make it to where we can only diff what we need to diff. Because if you had a bunch of labels and each of the labels are doing something different off of each property, I don't need to reinstantiate 100 Comet from texts, go through and update those. I can just do this one property. And that's the only thing that changed. And it even goes as far as I do, like, it's on this color. We could even do something on here that we say comet.rides is greater than 10 colors.red, else colors.white. And now that color property is only going to reevaluate when comment.rides changes. And so now that I have two things tied to it, it's only going to do it on the one thing. Now, things like an integer or a Boolean, you don't want to go create some custom class just to be able to get, hey, this thing was read or this thing changed. And so that's where state comes in. State lets you simply just say, hey, I'm not going to do anything fancy with this. When this property changes, go ahead and do your thing.
So one of the things that you see in other platforms that implement an MVU is that rather than acting directly on the state object like we are, you send a message, right? You dispatch a message, and then you have an update method which kind of handles all the messages for that view, right?
Yeah. So originally I did actually have that in the very first, when I was first implementing Comet, I did it very similar to the Flutter approach, where you say like, this is a view that has state, this is a stateless view, and things like that. And I even said like how they did I completely copied and mirrored their like update. Okay, start update, end update, and it does its thing. But in the end, what are you doing? You're always going to have to recall that body and reevaluate, because none of them you go through and say this text thing, because you don't save those properties off. And I realized I could simplify it a lot more by not requiring that. So you have the option of tying into doing these state things, right? You can say, hey, I have the state object and it changes. If you don't want to do that, and if we look at my uploader view, I didn't want to do that for like the item details for like, oh no, sorry, not for the item details. Yeah, from the item details for the images. And so if we look at like my image code, I actually say, hey, when you click the remove button, I just say reload, view.reload. That is the same thing as saying, hey, here's this update notification, something changed, go rediff. These other frameworks all always rediff. Comet's the only one that I know of that has this fine grain, like, you know, we're just going to update this one property on this one control because I know that's how it changed. And that's only possible due to the state class and the iNotify property read. But none of the other ones I think do that. And I could be wrong. If someone else knows of something like that, I'd love to see how they do it, because there's a very tricky problem. And it's a major optimization, because on a mobile phone, yes, my diff is efficient, but the bigger things get, the harder it is to keep track. I mean, it's just going to cost more to build the whole UI, and it's a virtual DOM. I'm not building a UI button for every button I instantiate. It's not a one-to-one for the native. It's a lightweight Comet view. I reinstantiate that tree, keep track of the virtual DOM, and I do the diffing there. So it is just .NET objects. So it is fast and efficient, but I didn't want to do that every time. So yeah, at any point, you can just do, if you don't want to tie into any of my state stuff, you want to deal with it yourself. Oh, I got a message. I know something changed. I can just do view.reload, and I can do that at any level. So if I had, I can do it at just this view. I can do it at the whole app level, and it'll rediff everything. I can do it at a nested view inside. It's up to you. I can, on the items view, I can just say, hey, this H stack, which is the cell dot reload. I can just do it. No, actually, I can't just do it there. If I had access to that cell on button click, I could do this dot reload. So you have full control over when and where you reload if you want.
So there's a question in the chat. Alexandre Santos Costa is asking about a flux pattern. And as I recall, that is something that Alex Dunn did a spike on and used his flux implementation with Comet while we were presenting at a conference at Techorama, as I recall. And so it exists out there. If you go find his GitHub, you'll find an implementation of that. I don't know that it works with the current Comet, but it might, because I don't know that the Comet API has really changed, has it? It's the underlying stuff.
Actually the state and all of the management and how all the binding and stuff, that has not changed much from the beginning. The only thing that's changed is the UI model, or the UI objects, because I've been changing them just to make them nicer, and those have changed to keep in line with Maui. And I've been trying to not break them too much, like text is still text instead of label. Maybe that'll change, but it just, I don't know, it reads nicely here, so I like it being like that. And yeah, you'll notice that you, one thing I want to show on here, you can notice how this time I don't do it as the Lambda, this one I do. And so you can do some things as a Lambda, some things as not. Inside this list view, these objects, these things can't ever change. So I don't even need to do the Lambda because there's no point in it ever changing. And Vincent's also asking if I could deal with some of the benefits like eliminating new and things like that. Absolutely. These are some of the things that I'm actually asking for .NET or C# changes. The way Vincent did the C# markup to eliminate news is really clever. I'm really impressed with C# markup. It's really awesome. But yes, there's lots of things for C# syntax that I want to get better. This whole body, I hate this body attribute. The only reason it exists is because of some C# implement or C#, some things I want to get changed in C#. So eventually I want this to go away. I want the syntax, if I had my way, public items view. If we were to do body equals, right, new text, that's valid. But I would also like you to be able, instead of doing all that, just do body equals right here. I want to be able to do that. That is not valid C#, but I want it to be. So I'm asking for things to make C# better and to make it cleaner because, yeah, I want stuff like this. So hopefully one day, I mean, I've been talking to Mads and I need to poke him again and say, hey, Mads, let's get some more cool things in here like that. So I want C# to become more elegant for this type of thing. So.
So two other questions that I have, we've got a few minutes left. So when it comes to styling, what I have been doing is I encapsulate my controls in a method where I can apply my styles. And of course I can just recreate that over and over and over again. You have some environment related things, right? Like how are you handling your styling?
Yeah. So what I do is I do it via extension methods. Now my extension methods, style is confirmed. If we were to go to that, all that does is sets the style ID. So everything you could just do, hey, view dot style ID and pass in a string. And that's its style ID. And that's very similar to like a CSS style ID type thing. Now Comet has some really, really awesome styling. So let me load up.
And that before you do that, so my style.confirm rounded button style, where is that coming from?
It's where I'm headed.
Okay, sorry. I thought you were taking left and I wanted you to go right.
No. Let's go. I'm trying to remember where I put it in this project. I don't see my style class. You know what? Let's just go to declaration and that should open the file. Okay, it opened the file and I don't know where it lives inside my folders. So it's here though. No, that didn't take me there. And I clicked on the wrong thing.
Meta file.
Yeah, I thought I right-clicked on the right thing. Go to. All right, here's my style class. So Comet has a style class. So I subclassed comet.styles. You'll notice I put these like read-only things. These are my own, this is just a string saying, hey, it's the name of that type, rounded button style. And it's just a name of itself because I wish that there's a nice, easier syntax of that too. But okay, now what I've done is, and I'm going to rework this style class. So if you start using it now, you will probably get some breaking changes because and maybe not breaking changes, but I realized I have not exposed enough things. And the only way I was able to do some of this stuff was because I knew how Comet worked under the hood, and I don't want that. I don't want you to have to think about that. So I have my rounded button. It has the set environment value. I don't want you doing that. But here, what I do is I'm saying, hey, for this view with this style ID, and when so this is how it applies. So ignore actually these first two things. The main thing that comes from this, if we actually look at where I apply that, when we apply a Comet style, you pass in the view, right? Right now I'm setting it to null because it's being set at the app level. I still pass that thing through, so that's why you're seeing that. And then you're seeing the style ID come in. But I'm saying, hey, apply rounded button. For rounded button, its color's green, and and then the other color's white. And this is my own apply rounded button function that I added right here. So those are two things that get passed into it. So I say, make it a clip shape because I want it to be rounded. Make it a rounded button, and then also set the background to be the background color. Set the text color to be the color, and then also I set the fonts. So set the fonts. That's it. that's me setting these styles. Now, like I said, I want to make this a little bit better. If we look at the Comet source, I was going through and doing the material style. And so inside of the material style, says where those helper things last. And also I didn't point out in that as well. I do inside my app, I just do apply style. Where did I thought, or maybe it's on the main page I set it. But that style can be applied at any level. At the app level, if you just do apply style null, it's going to apply it to the whole app. You can go view, my style dot apply and pass it to that view. And now just that view and its children are going to use that style. So I can do each tab individually, which is really, really, really nice. And inside my style, I did for hot reload purposes, on hot reload, run this function. So now as I'm coding in this file, it looks for that hot reload function whenever a file is hot reloaded. And it's just say, oh, new style, apply it. And so my style gets applied just by typing in this file, because every time this thing's reloaded, go. And it only does it when this file is reloaded, not on any view reload, just on the style reloading, it'll run that, which is really cool. So you can hot reload anything, not just view stuff. As long as it knows how to, which that makes it really nice to just do the styles. So on the style class, I did start doing things to make things nicer. So this is the stuff that's going to change. So I have a button style, text, color, font, padding. And if we look at material, material says, hey, we have an outline style. You'll notice it follows that same exact pattern, right, that I was doing somewhere else. So it takes in the color pattern or the color palette, which I define for you. You don't have to. You could create your own. But these color palettes, why did I do go to base? I meant go to declaration. And now I've got to wait for the assembly loader to load.
Well, while you're waiting for that to load real quick, Maddie, is there another show right after us? Are we going to get bumped? Do we need to make room for anybody on the live stream?
Good question.
I don't want to get in trouble.
Sometimes there is, but most of the time I don't think there is.
And I also wanted to just make a declaration to everybody, just so you know, this is an experiment, and we're looking to learn things from it. Is this a style of coding that you like? Are there improvements to the C# language and the compiler that would be helpful beyond just this experiment? There's no promise that this becomes a product. I love it, but I'm just one developer, right? And so, if this is something that is interesting for you, please do let us know the feedback. Come to the Comet GitHub repo. But in no way, this is James doing cool stuff to make his life easier, and I get to play with it and enjoy it. But of course, where the product effort and everything is .NET Maui itself. So I know that sometimes seeing something like this may have you questioning, oh my gosh, am I doing XAML and I shouldn't be doing XAML? No, you keep doing that. You're doing great with that. No problem. I don't know what that message was, but
I think we're good, but
okay.
We can wrap it up anyways if you want to go back to your life, James.
No, that's right. I can finish showing that style thing, or if there's any other questions. Yeah. Also, there's a Discord channel. You can. I just sworn I opened up the other one. So feel free to join the Discord, ask questions. If there's things you think are too verbose, let's talk about it. The grid thing, I've been talking about fixing grid for like 6 months, and I finally went in and did the stuff that I'd been trying to do with the new like V grid and H grid. And it really, really simplifies life being able to just not write less code. And that's really my whole goal, is I want to write less code and do more. And so in that material style, what I was showing was the material style actually defines and says, hey, an outline button has a text color and it grabs the color palette. So that way, if you switch between color palettes, it's going to automatically grab the right color. It gets a border of this. You'll notice here, it's actually going a little bit farther because these things are all a style or a style aware value, which means you can say, hey, control style default, hovered, pressed. Maui doesn't use those states, but the graphics controls does. So the drawn controls will use the different value based on them, which is pretty cool. And that actually does work with Javier's stuff. It will grab the right color, which is pretty nice. As the state changes, it'll grab the new color. But it's really easy. This is what I want you to write, not the code I showed you that I had to write. I just don't have it far enough along. But this is what I want you to write. So say, hey, I'm making this style. The text color's this, the border's this, and it's really simple for you to do that. And just set these styles up, have them for each of the different classes, and then just say apply. And it'll build those styles out. So it's really nice filling them out that way. And like I said, I ran into some properties not being set there, and that's why I was inside of my own code writing this set environment thing. I don't want you writing that code. You can, and it works, but I just don't want you in there. I don't want you to have to be in there. You can if you want. So
nice.
Classic. Sweet. Well, all right. Well, we're at time. I know we have a bunch of things in the chat, so definitely feel free to tweet any of us. Clancy's Twitter is at JT Clancey, or shoot us an email or whatever, and we'll try and answer them too. But yeah, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you, Clancy, so much for hanging out. And I understood probably like 60% of what you said, and I was like, very cool. The 60% I understood. The 40% I was like, yeah, that looks like code. So
it's a lot at once. It really is a lot at once. But if you start playing with it, it clicks. It really will click.
It makes sense just reading it, which is weird. So
yeah, you're gonna tease everybody by showing them VS for Mac.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. This is what I wanted to show was the new V grid, because like you look at the new code for writing a grid, it's still getting bigger. Okay, it stopped. You just say, I got a vertical grid with 3 columns, and it's just going to go 1, 2, 3, next row, 1, 2, 3, next row. And so we've all built those forms, and you've done it. And then they're like, oh, by the way, go in here and add a new row in there. Well, now you can. You can just add a new row and not deal with now everything below. I have to go increment its cell. That just kills me.
That's so nice.
So,
oh my goodness.
And it's a lot less code than doing a flex layout.
And this does have all the same benefits of the flex layout, because on this I still can say, this one I can just say dot cell and say like column,
the column and the row
span, and say this one spans all 3 columns. So you still have that benefit to be able to do that.
Sweet. All righty.
And thanks for wearing the t-shirt, Jim.
Oh yeah, good t-shirt. I linked earlier. There's a bonfire.net Maui store where you can get that t-shirt, and donations go to Girls Who Code or Black Girls Code, and set up by our very own Gerald, who we love. So, all righty, everybody. We'll see you in a month. Happy 2022. Stay safe. Stay, if it's winter where you are, stay warm. We're getting 6 inches of snow in Boston tonight. I'm very excited.
It's -4 right now, so I'm inside.
God, go away. Here. All righty, everybody. We will see you next time, and I hope you all have a happy and healthy new year.
All right. See you. Bye.